Perfect. So I'll just keep letting everyone in from the lobby, but thank you so much. Just a few briefing notes. So my name is Malika from Success at School, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. We have something really exciting, and we've got loads of students that are wanting to join this webinar. So we really appreciate the time that you have taken out of your day to join this. Just so that everyone is aware, the chat will not be working throughout this webinar, but you do have access to the Q&A function. Hopefully you should see that on your screen. That is where you can type in any questions that you may have. We will get down to a live Q&A towards the end of the webinar, but if a question pops into your head as the speakers are presenting, please feel free to drop it into the Q&A. Thank you so much once again for joining. I am now going to pass it over to the wonderful team at Warner, who are going to rattle through all about their apprenticeship opportunities.
Brilliant, thank you. So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining today to find out more about our apprenticeship opportunities at WBD. My name's Lottie and I'm the Early Talent Degree Apprentice at Warner Brothers Discovery, and we're also joined by Sarah, who is the Senior Manager for Early Talent International, and we both sit in the Early Talent team, as well as some of our lovely apprentices and ex-apprentices to tell you a bit more about their experiences at WBD and give you some application tips. Oh, there we go. So yeah, as lots of you probably already know, Warner Brothers Discovery is a leading global media and entertainment company that creates and distributes the world's most differentiated and complete portfolio of content and brands across television, film and streaming. We operate in more than 220 countries and territories and in 50 different languages, and we're home to many brands you've likely heard of before, including TNT Sports, the Food Network, HBO Max, CNN, Cartoon Network, and so many more, as you can probably see below. You probably recognize a lot of them. So we have 3 apprentices work across. So we have our hub in Chiswick, which is where more of the discovery side of the business are based. And then we have our Old Street office in central London, where CNN film and create their content, as well as more of the corporate side of the business sit. And then Leavesden, which is where we have our studios and where we film our films and TV shows. And we also have the Harry Potter studio tour. Cool. So moving on to a bit more about our apprenticeship programme. So our programme is designed for those who are 18 plus, and it is an alternative to university education. So therefore we're only seeking applicants from people who have not already graduated from university with a degree. So our apprenticeships are a great opportunity to gain hands-on experience and take on real responsibility within a supportive, encouraging business environment, where you'll be an integral and valued member of the team whilst also completing your qualification alongside. So our apprenticeship roles sit more on the corporate side of the business. So we have roles that sit in areas such as marketing, creative services, P&C, which is basically our version of HR, so people and culture, and business, finance, retail, production operations, and so many others. And our apprenticeships are a minimum of 18 months, dependent on the level of the qualification you are doing, where you'll either start in September or March. So we have 2 rounds of apprentices for each year. So we advertise roles every 6 months for the September cohort. So we advertise for these in June. So keep an eye out. We have a couple out at the moment. And then if you're just finishing your A-levels, this might be a good time for you to apply. And then for our March cohort, we usually go live at the start of December. So these are full-time positions where 20% of your work 20% of your work week is dedicated to studying, and the majority of our roles are hybrid unless stated otherwise, where there is a company policy of a minimum of 3 days a week in the office and the rest is working from home. So now we're going to be hearing from the apprentices and ex-apprentices. So I'm going to start with myself and a bit about my role to tell you a bit more about each of our experiences. So just an overview, I work on the early talent team, as I said, and I hire interns and apprentices on the corporate side of the business in areas like marketing, P&C, business, sales, publicity, all the ones I listed before. I also get to attend careers fairs, which is really fun, at local schools and universities to promote our programs, as well as hosting early careers events and sessions such as this one. I'm also in charge of running assessment centres for the roles we're hiring for and coordinating them on the day, as well as corresponding with the hiring teams to ensure a seamless process for both them and the candidates. I also do lots of CV sifting, reading of applications, watching video interviews, screening calls, emailing, etc., etc. That's just a few of the things I do. But yeah, no 2 days are the same. And my day-to-day, so like I said, no 2 days are the same. I'm making offer calls and rejection calls. I'm processing candidates on our platform called Workday. I do travel reimbursement, so I get to look more at the finance side of things. I'm booking in kickoff calls, which are just basically calls with the teams that we're hiring for roles for to discuss what they're looking for in a candidate and just the whole process for the candidate and for them. And then I have weekly team meetings and catch-ups with Sarah and my line manager, Annie, who unfortunately couldn't join today, just to catch up and see what needs to be done and set goals and things like that. And then also planning events, not only external events, but internal events for our interns and apprentices, things like speaker sessions where we get people in from different areas of the business to come and speak to people just to give them better understanding of different areas of the business and sort of widen their knowledge on that. And then also arranging interviews. And this is just very surface level, like there is a lot more to my role, but these are sort of like the main things I'm doing. And then I get to sort of work on loads of other things as well, like helping more in general recruitment in other teams as well is also a part of my role. Favorite projects. So as an apprentice, I love to recruit apprentices. So I've taken on more responsibilities to help with the apprentice recruitment process. So I've been shortlisting candidates, arranging screening calls, speaking to hiring managers, arranging assessment centres and interviews and running those. Then also working on events for National Apprenticeship Week, which you might also be aware of was earlier this year in February. So we hosted an online apprentice event where we had over 500 attendees. We also hosted an in-person event for our just for our apprentices, and took them to our picture and sound post-production site and did some activities with them. And then also I just love running assessment centres. Just coordinating the days is really fun, and getting to work with the teams and seeing what sort of lovely candidates we have in the room is also really great to see. So a few tips for applying. I go more into this at the end as well during the Q&A, but I'd say a few tips. Believe in yourself. You know, someone has to get the job. Why can't it be you? It is really difficult when there's so many people applying to things, but you just got to keep going, keep pushing through, and eventually you will get something. Taking your time when applying to jobs, especially to ones that you're really interested in, I think is really important. Just making sure that you check your CV, make sure it's tailored to each job that you're applying for. If you have time to write a cover letter, add that in as well. Just shows you've sort of gone the extra mile to show that you're really interested in the role. And then also reading the job description thoroughly, you know, making sure that you sort of line up with the job description and using the buzzwords from the job description in your CV is really important. And then also when it gets to like interviews and stuff, reading that job description and making sure that you have sort of points you can hit on each of those. Like I say, if they're looking for someone with excellent teamwork skills, tell us an example of when you've used great teamwork skills or something like that. Don't be discouraged by rejection. You know, when I was applying to apprenticeships, I was rejected by loads of different roles before I end up getting my one. I'm a big believer in the right thing will wait for you. So honestly, just relax and apply to as much as you can. And it's not usually a reflection on you. It might just be that another candidate just had one extra thing or said one extra thing or did a little bit more research. It's nothing on your character. It's just the way that it happened, unfortunately. And then using the STAR method when interviewing, I'd say is really important. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, result, and it's just a really good way to structure your points. So say you're being asked, tell us about a time you've used excellent communication skills. Then take that a situation where you have used good communication skills, the task at hand, the action you took to complete that, and then the result. Did it go well? Did it go badly? What did you learn from it? And just sort of evaluate it from there. So I think we're going to be Eva, who is our client services apprentice. So if I could hand over to Eva, and she'll talk a little bit more about her role.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lottie. Hello, everyone. My name is Eva, and I was going to kind of talk you through a bit about how I found my application process and then go into a bit more depth about what I do and some tips as well as highlights as well. So I kind of started off my application process like prior to my apprenticeship. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do after my A-levels. I was keeping my options open, but I was looking for apprenticeships, and I searched like so many different websites. So I would recommend like have a look at all company websites and things for any sort of potential opportunities. And I came across this one at Warner Brothers. I applied via their website, and that was kind of like the first step of the process, was applying online, answering some questions, attaching my CV, that kind of thing. And then the next stage was a virtual interview where I recorded my answers and then sent them in. It was like a mixture of written questions as well as some video ones. So it kind of gave you like a certain amount of time to plan, and then you would record the answer, and you had like up to a couple of takes to redo them if you wanted to, and then it would submit. And that was like the virtual interview stage. And then after that, I was waiting, and I found out that I'd gotten into the assessment centre. That was like the next stage of the process. And I didn't know what an assessment centre was. I hadn't been to one before. So I did some research about like what to expect going into it. And on the day, I didn't really know how many people would be there either. But there were quite a few of us, and it was like a mixture of group activities. Then we had like a solo activity. We had a presentation, also an interview at the end. But I would just say like it was actually not that bad. I think it can seem really daunting going into something like that. But it was actually not too bad. And yeah, you can do it. And then after the assessment centre, initially it was going to be like one more interview possibly after that, and then you would find out if you got it or not. But the application process ended up being a bit longer than that. There was then another interview after that one, and that was an in-person interview. So I got called back, and that one, yeah, that was in person. And then after that, there was then a virtual interview after that. So it did feel a little bit long, but it was so worth it. Making it to the final stage as well was really, really proud of myself for that. And then after that, I was then waiting, and then kind of like post getting the apprenticeship, there was like an induction and lots of training. So that's kind of the application process in a summary. But then what I actually do, so I'm client services, and I'm over at the studios in Leavesden, and a little bit of like what I do day to day, like what some of my responsibilities are. I think it's the next slide. So client services as a department, we are kind of like the first point of contact for the studios. We effectively, yeah, we represent them. So us as a team, it's made up of our sales director, Lisa, and then we've got our senior manager and then our coordinators, and they kind of collectively look after the shows and productions that are on site. And then underneath our coordinators are the assistants, and me, the apprentice. And so us as a team, we are in charge of kind of looking after the clients and productions. And so for me as an apprentice, some of my responsibilities can be just some admin bits, which can be seeming like a little bit boring, but it's actually I really enjoy it. It's some of like the more organising bits. Like we have some daily documents that I do every day. I have to update them and send them out to like every department on site. Then I have some like phone calls, answering those, transferring calls as well, because I kind of deal with like external and internal customers like every day. And so yeah, communication skills is a really key one there as well. I send emails as well. I assist with client visits. So I'm in kind of like the team with our we have our senior vice president of the studios, and so she gets lots of visitors on a daily basis, and so sometimes I'll have to make teas, coffees, direct them to like our little waiting area, and then kind of like bring them over to her office. And then I'm also just doing like daily coordinator supports. That could look like forwarding things to them, emails, all of that kind of stuff. And then I'm also a project lead, so there's one of the projects I've been working on so far has been taking photos of some of our workshop and office spaces, and that's kind of like collaborating with marketing. It kind of goes with like the website as well. So if we have productions that are looking to use workshop or office spaces, we can then send them the photos that they can like see what it looks like, see if it's like fit for what they're looking for in their production. And then that will also go along with like mods and specifications of the spaces as well, so that they can kind of compare the two and see if it's right for them. As well as like all of those little admin bits, I do get to do some really fun things as well. So I get to sometimes like assist with site tours. So it's kind of like a highlight as well so far, as we had the National Film and Television School come and visit. I think it was maybe like a month or so ago, and I got to help assist on that, which was really, really great. We had like, they had like a site of the tour, a tour of the site. So I got to help out and then do like a little bit of like a talk with them as well about like what we do as a company. Another highlight I would say is getting to explore some of the sets. I do love Harry Potter, I'm sure lots of you do. And getting to see some sets was amazing. So I'd say that's a highlight so far for sure. I've also just been loving, so we have lots of buggies that help us get around the site, and I've been able to drive some of those around to just explore. And also the Harry Potter tour. So it's sort of like, it's slightly separate to the studio, but it is right next door. So I occasionally get to go over, and it's really great again to then go and see the Harry Potter tour. So that's kind of, yeah, my highlights so far. And then some tips, I would say actively search for opportunities, because I searched a lot, but you just have to keep looking and like something will pop up. I think Lottie mentioned some of these already, but like communication, that is a really key transferable skill that I would say to focus on, and as well as like time management, being able to manage your time as well as like your workload is a big thing. And organization and teamwork skills are just, it seems really obvious, but those are just really good skills to have. Also, many people I spoke to like prior my apprenticeship, like they said just be up for trying everything, and every experience is good experience. So just like help out or just ask if you can shadow, like any experience you can get is worth it, I would say. And then for interviews, a big tip is just to like be confident, smile, ask questions, do not be afraid to ask questions, and just like a passionate for it as well. It makes a really big difference. Those are just some of my tips. But yeah, I just wish you all the best as well with your application process. Thanks.
Brilliant, thanks Eva. I think we're going to move on now to this loads. There we go. We're going to move on to Emma now, who's our creative apprentice. So if I could pass over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Lottie. Yeah, so I'm doing a creative apprentice within the global content distribution sales department, and I'm within the creative services team. So we we support the marketing and sales department with their creative content and assets they use in order to sell our content. So our team is quite a small team within the creative services. There's about 8 of us. I think on the next slide. So this is our team. So there's 10 of us, I believe, and we all sit very close together. So we're a very cohesive team, a lot of teamwork, a lot of talking, not always very productive in the office when we're all around each other, but it's a good environment to be in. So I'm the apprentice within the team. We also have an intern, a placement intern, which is Georgia at the moment. We work very closely together and our roles quite mimic each other. So when one of us isn't sure on a process, it's very good to have that other person to rely on and be able to learn off as well. And that sort of runs throughout the team. There's normally somebody that has a similar role to the other person. So we have 2 editors, 2 designers, and then we have our 2 creative directors, and then Kat, who's our marketing guru. So yeah, our team is often assisting the sales department with their content and assets. And if we go on to the next slide. So this is some of the work and the creative projects I've been able to experience and be the lead creative on. So this can range from Photoshop as well as like video editing, event design, which includes like software such as SketchUp or Unreal Engine, where we virtually create the events and then liaise with asset management and they're able to put it to life. And then spotlights, which is our emails which we send to clients, which sort of entices them to buy our content. But yeah, these projects have allowed me to, you know, really build on my knowledge and experience on these systems, which will come in handy both in this role and then in future opportunities as well. But obviously being such a small team, it's very important within the application process. I learned from myself, as well as hiring for our recent intern, that, you know, you really show your personality. Having such small teams, it's important that they know they can gel with you, they know you'll merge into their team, as well as creatives are normally quite wacky, quite fun, so they want to know that you're going to get on well within the team. And then onto the next page, we have a bit more of the fun side of work, which is all the fun things we get to do. Obviously working within Warner Brothers, there's lots of great benefits. Some more of the boring financial benefits, which aren't so interesting, but there's also such other things in day-to-day jobs, such as like premieres, or we have dogs in at work, just sort of a bit of fun just to lighten the days. So yeah, it's very hard work, but also very rewarding. So
brilliant, thank you. I think we're going to move on to Shalene now, who works as, oh, is this going to load? There we go. Who is now our fashion licensing associate, but she used to be a brand licensing and home entertainment apprentice. So I'll pass over to her.
Thanks, Lottie. Hey everyone, my name's Shalene. My current role is the fashion licensing associate. As Lottie mentioned, I've done 1 whole apprenticeship and then a half apprenticeship just recently. So I've been at Warner Brothers for 3 years, and we're going to get a bit more into my journey, which is on the next slide. So starting off from secondary school, so I was in secondary school from 2016 to 2021, so you can probably work out my age. So I took art, geography, and health and social care, just to give you guys some context, and nothing related to what I do currently, but good for you to know. And then I went to a South Thames college. I studied esports. So if you don't know, that's online gaming. And I studied a range of things from live streaming to nutrition when you're gaming, which is really exciting as it was a passion of mine and still is. And then I went into my first apprenticeship at Warner Brothers. So that was the home entertainment apprenticeship. In which I studied a level 3 business administration course for a year and a half. And if you don't know what home entertainment is, it's all your DVDs, films, and Blu-rays and 4Ks, and also your games cartridges. So all those little discs you put in your Switch or your PlayStation or your Xbox. I worked with different retailers and grocers, being the likes of Asda and Argos. So after a year and a half, I went into a completely different apprenticeship, but under the same vice president. So my vice president has 3 teams, which is consumer products, home ents, and supply chain. So firstly, I was in the home ents team, and then I was in the consumer products team. So I went into a brand licensing apprenticeship, which was offered to me. And if you don't know what brand licensing is, I will get onto that in a minute. So I did that for a year, and I studied a level 4 project management course. And then another opportunity came up, which I'm super grateful for, which is the fashion licensing associate role. And onto the next slide, I will explain to you what brand licensing is and what I do now. So on here, there's 2 equations. I wish I had this when I first started. So essentially, we work with brands like the likes of Primark, Lush, McDonald's, you can name it, all the stores you see in your local town, and then we work with them to put our IP onto their product. So that could be Harry Potter, Scooby-Doo, Rick and Morty, all those cool clothes you buy from Primark that have our brands on it. And then on the bottom equation is also the recent collab we did with Lush, which was with Scooby-Doo. Hopefully one of you out there has bought it, but a really exciting project I got to work on. And something I didn't mention was when I was in brand licensing, I mostly focused on food, health and beauty. But now in my new role, I'm focused on fashion. So within my team, there's multiple different categories: fashion, food, health and beauty, toys, homeware. So you can really branch off into different products, which is so exciting. And if we go on to the next page, I'm going to talk about my highlights and tips from my past 3 years. Here's some really wholesome pictures that I absolutely love from my last 3 years. On the bottom left, you can see me and Lottie on our first apprenticeship week day, which was really exciting. We got to visit the Leavesden tour, the Harry Potter studio tour that Eva mentioned earlier, and got a cute photo. And then on the top left, you can see me and the massive consumer products team from globally around the world when we went to Amsterdam last year, and we had a massive commercial meeting working out our plans for the next few years. And then all the other pictures, the middle one is from Batman Unmasked, huge Batman fan, so it was really exciting to attend. And then on the right is one of our past interns who went to the Sinners premiere with me. And then on the bottom middle is when we went to our home ents factory. So this is where they distribute and manufacture all our home ents products. So apart from all the events that we get to go to, I've also made some really good friendships and really good friends that I've just kept forever, and people that I've still kept in contact to and meet till this day, which is really exciting for me. And I've also gotten to work on some really fun projects like the McDonald's and Friends collab we recently did for the Adult Happy Meal, and also mentioned previously the Scooby-Doo and Lush collab. Lush are just such an exciting team to work with, and they are amazing. I'm going to touch on some of my tips now. As Eva mentioned, I always stand by this: don't be afraid to ask questions. In secondary school, I was probably so afraid to ask questions because I didn't want to be the person that was keeping everyone back. But I have learnt from that. Always ask your questions, or you're always going to be wondering, what if you did ask that question? What is the answer to that question? Be yourself, as everyone else has said. Can't stress this enough. Be yourself and don't show up to be anyone else. And also, super important one, don't stress if you're unsure on what you're doing in the future. I'm sure it'll all work out, and I didn't have it all planned out when I was in secondary school or even at college, but it's all worked out and I cannot complain about my job. It's really exciting. But yeah, that's all from me. And on the next slide is just LinkedIn for if you guys ever have that. You can always follow along on that, and then also our social pages. And I'll pass it over to Lottie.
Brilliant, thanks Shalene, and thank you to all of the apprentices that spoke. Hopefully that was really insightful for you in some of the roles that we have available and some of the tips. So I'm going to move on now to our application process. Eva's already touched on this a little bit, but it sort of does vary depending on the role. Obviously, every company has their own different way of applying to things and their own processes and everything, but for us, so for starters, you'll apply on the WBD website and submit your CV, and if you want a cover letter here, it's not essential but always recommended. And then it will either be a screening call with a recruiter such as myself or Annie, who's not on the call today, and then also to find out if you're interested in the position. This is just a quick sort of 10-minute call just to see why you applied, and if you qualify for the position, and just check your background and things. Or you'll do a written assessment on HireView, which is usually about 4 or 5 questions, which differ depending on the role, but it'll just be things like, tell us about yourself and why do you want to apply to this position, why are you interested in this position. And then we present back the final candidates to the hiring team and the hiring manager, and they usually do a shortlist from here, and then you'll either be invited to an interview with the hiring manager and the team, which is just your typical interview setup as you would know it, or an assessment centre with the team. So I'll touch more on assessment centres in a bit, but assessment centres, basically all the candidates for that role come in and they do some group tasks and some interviews and things like that. And then allow sort of 2 weeks after your interview to hear back on a decision from us. And then hopefully if you're offered, you can accept. Again, this does differ, as Eva said, like hers was a bit different to this, her process, but this is typically how it looks. So just a heads up on how you can potentially apply in the future. So moving on to some tips for CVs and portfolios. So you can make your CV stand out by creating a profile paragraph, which is sort of needs to be sort of about 2 or 3 sentences about yourself, your experience and skills and the role that you're applying to. And you can sort of change this depending on the role that you're applying to, so tailoring your CV, like I was saying earlier. Then using action words is important for your CV, such as developed, led, increased, improved, managed, etc., etc. Just sort of buzzwords just to make it you stand out a bit. Then having a clear layout is really important. So at this point in your career, as if you're applying to an apprenticeship, we do not expect you to have much, if any, experience at all. They're completely entry level, no experience required. So just keeping your CV to 1 page is important. And I always think if there's anything you really want to delve into a little bit more, you can always add that in a cover letter. But just keeping things to sort of bullet points and keeping things concise is really important. Also making your CV intuitive. So if you're applying for a job that requires sort of great organisation skills, then make sure that your CV is sort of well presented and well organised. And then moving on to cover letters, not all companies require you to have a cover letter, including ours. But I think if you're applying for a role that you're really interested in, then it's worth writing one just to describe why you're the best fit fit for the role and the company, and why you're interested in the company, and then sort of showcase your research on the company. It doesn't need to be longer than a page, even just a few paragraphs is enough, but I think it is just good to sort of embellish your application if you want to put your best foot forward. And then if you're applying to sort of creative roles, then reels and portfolios are important. So just showcasing your best design work and also work that you've done outside of school is really important, just to show that you've got like sort of a true passion for it. And then finally, leaving a great first impression, it's important. So coming to your interview with questions and answers prepared and doing your research into the company. And then also just following up with a thank you note. It's not necessarily needed, but it's just a nice add-on to say thank you for the team and for taking the time out of their day to speak to you. Websites that you can look for jobs on. So when I was applying to jobs, LinkedIn was definitely my favorite for finding jobs, as they're just always adding jobs on there all the time, and it's really easy to sort of manage. And then you can also create a profile, and it's just really great for putting yourself out there and documenting your successes, your skills and job changes and progression and things like that. And then you've also got Not Going to Uni, Bright Network, UCAS, going to the actual website of the company that you're applying for, Rate My Friendship, Indeed. I've put Jabari on there, who are our diversity partner, who we work with to recruit those from Black and ethnically diverse and low-income backgrounds. So that's also really great to go to. We also host a lot of events with them. So these are just a few that you can keep an eye out for when looking for jobs, because obviously it's so hard navigating it when there's so many coming up. So these are sort of like the main places to go to. Cool, so I think we're going to move on to the Q&A portion now. So these are just some questions that we usually get asked. So I'll quickly go through some of the answers there before we move on to any questions that you guys have. So any advice on how to set yourself apart from other candidates? I'd say doing your research and just being enthusiastic throughout the process. You know, do your research on not just the company, but their initiatives, doing your research on the team, the role. Again, looking back at that job description, just being as thorough as you can. And then, yeah, being enthusiastic throughout the whole process. You know, I think that's probably one of the most important things, especially when applying to an apprenticeship, because you're not necessarily required to have any previous experience. So just showing that you're sort of willing to put your best foot forward and try new things, and you're enthusiastic about the role, is really sort of important in that sense. Are there opportunities to stay on after you've completed your apprenticeship? Yes, definitely. I mean, although you're not guaranteed a role, we have seen many apprentices go into full-time positions at the company, such as Shalene, or progress on to higher and degree apprenticeships. So I've gone on to the degree apprenticeship. So I started that at the start of this year, and I've still got 2.5 years left after that. But before that, I did the level 3 business administration apprenticeship. So I've had a good amount of experience, whilst also getting the qualification alongside. And then what tasks might you get at an assessment centre? I've sort of touched on this a little bit, but you are likely to get sort of a group task assessing like your collaboration skills and your presentation skills, just to assess like confidence and things like that. Or you might get an individual task to assess specific skills required for that role. So, for example, if you're applying to a finance role or something like that, then Excel skills is probably a requirement. So you might get a task on something like that. Or if you're applying to a PR role, you have to have good writing skills or something like that. So they might get you to do some sort of writing task. And then usually some sort of interview portion, so that might be like speed interviews where you get to meet with all of the members of the team, or they'll pull you out and do quick interviews. So it really does depend, and it does depend on the company you're applying to, but that is generally how it looks for our assessment centres. Is there flexibility with the apprenticeship if you're busy at work? Yes, definitely. If you're falling behind on work due to busy schedule, there's lots of flexibility to catch up at a later date. I definitely understand this. There's been times where I've had a really busy schedule and really struggled to sort of manage 2 things at once. But there's lots of flexibility, and they're very understanding that you are also doing a qualification alongside doing a full-time role, and it's hard to balance those. And then how is the week structured when balancing apprenticeship work and the work in my role? So you'll be given sort of a day a week to complete your work, or you may want to sort of spread your work out over a week, so like an hour and a half every day, or do 2 half days or something like that, but it is 20% of your time, so that is the equivalent of 1 working day. And the teams are usually pretty good at allocating this time, so you have the time, so you're not doing it on the weekend. It is meant to be part of your work week, of your working time, so they're very understanding in that sense. So those are just sort of our like most burning questions that we get asked, but if we could move on to the Q&A portion, I might stop sharing, and then I can probably have a look at the Q&A chat box.
Thank you. Whilst you're doing that, I'm happy to actually ask a question that someone has just emailed me that I think would be nice to kick things off with each of the apprentices. And the question is, what do you think is one personality trait that all apprentices have at Warner Brothers? I think that's a great question to start off. So Lottie, should we kick that off with you?
Yeah, I think being personable and friendly. I feel like that's such like a basic one, but I think everyone at the company is just extremely friendly and sort of willing to lend a hand. So I think that's one trait that sort of everyone has at the company, other than like the classic ones. It's like good communication skills and things like that. I think that's one trait that sort of everyone has. Everyone, like, especially as an apprentice, that's been such an important thing to me, that everyone's very approachable, because it's hard asking questions when you think they're like a really obvious answer, but no, everyone's been very nice and willing to sort of help, and hopefully I've been helpful to other people too. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the most important thing.
Anyone else have any other personality traits you think is like a core value?
Oh, Emma, do you want to go? Or
No, you go.
I think optimism is a good personality trait, just being open to other ideas and solutions, because you never know when a challenge might come up, and you just need to be open to having another solution or hearing someone else out.
Yeah, I was just gonna say quite passionate and very like willing to learn, and try hard and succeed within the team they are. I think it's quite good to be very adaptable, especially within my apprenticeship. Some days are very creative heavy, some days are very admin heavy, so being able to balance both sides without being disappointed that you're not on every project, or having that ability and like passion just to help the team. Yeah.
Eva, do you have anything before we move on to the next question?
The only thing I would probably add is just being like able to manage like the workload as well. Some days we can be kind of like tight under pressure, so it's good. I guess it's similar to being like adaptable as well. That's another good trait to have, being able to manage your workload.
Thank you. Lottie, any other questions that you want to take away, or are you happy if I just ping through them?
Yeah, go for it. Just go through them.
Amazing. So we've had Sarah, thank you so much for answering this question anyways, but I think 2 students have upvoted this comment. So how long would you say the actual application process from application to offer takes?
It usually takes sort of, if you're applying, say, to start in September or even March, like you usually apply sort of around June, and then hopefully by sort of the start of August we can sort of fill that role, and then sort of onboard you about a month before you actually start. This can vary depending on how quickly they want to hire someone and getting approvals and things like that, but it is usually, I'd say, a month and a half to 2 months-ish, around and abouts.
Amazing, thank you. And then a couple of questions about alternative pathways like internships, graduate jobs, maybe students that do have a university degree. What else is offered outside of the apprenticeship route?
Yeah, so we actually just hired a massive cohort of placement interns. So if you don't know what a placement internship is, it's sort of like your sandwich year. So you do your first 2 years of uni, you do your work a years of like industry experience, and then you go and complete your final year at university. So we've recently hired, I think, 70 new placement interns who will be starting with us in sort of 3 weeks' time. And we have roles sort of spanning all across the corporate side of the business, like I mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, we don't have a graduate program anymore, but we did used to. But yeah, we're now solely focusing on our placement internships, and then we've also got our CNN internships. So for those, you don't need a degree to do this, but for those who are really interested in journalism, who've got strong writing skills, or just interest in sort of like news and sport and things like that, then our CNN internships are a great place to start if you want to get into that area. So these are a 6-month program, as opposed to our placement internships are a year. So you get experience working in the CNN studios, and you get to meet loads of people across CNN, and then usually after that 6 months, lots of people tend to be kept on as freelancers, because in that sort of realm, instead of having a permanent role, it's usually like freelancing anyway. So loads of people usually are kept on as freelancers, which is really great to see. And then again, also with our placement interns, a lot of them do come back after they finish their final year of uni and manage to secure permanent positions with us, which is really great as well.
Thank you. And just going on to, because you've mentioned permanent positions, we've got another question here, which is about the apprenticeship route and getting a role within the company, or do you have to look for a role outside of the company? Maybe, Charlene, this could be a good one for you, since you've completed your apprenticeship and stayed on. How did that process work for you?
So the process wasn't as planned as you may think it was. So after my first apprenticeship, I was obviously looking outside of the company, as you would do, but also looking within the company. And my VP was very aware that I wanted to stay within her team. So this opportunity of the brand licensing apprentice came about, in which I took. And then the company is very open to you staying on, and if let's say a role comes up and you are in an apprenticeship, and you feel like it's applicable to you, you can always speak to the hiring manager to see their thoughts on it and what next steps you should take. So I found the process really streamlined and really good, and it's worked out, and my team know me quite well, and so does my VP, so they knew exactly what was right for me. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. The next question, which has got quite a few upvotes, was quite a loaded question, I would say. So it is, do you think an apprenticeship is the best way to get into the media industry, opposed to attending university and completing a degree? Happy to kick that off and say, when you think of university or an apprenticeship, it really depends on who you are as an individual and the way in which you want to learn, the way you like to learn. There's a lot of benefits to both, and a lot of people do have both of their options open, and we always recommend that. But maybe it would be helpful if all of the apprentices gave an insight as to why they went down the apprenticeship route themselves. So Eva, are you happy if I throw that to you first?
Yeah, sure. Personally, why I chose an apprenticeship, I was just not really sure whether uni was for me. So that's why I kind of ended up looking at apprenticeships to start with. But I'd say from my experience so far is that I really like the aspect of kind of starting work already, getting that like hands-on experience, as well as kind of like the learning on the side. I think for me that's quite a good balance. I enjoy kind of the two together. I think the I guess what you're like kind of like missing out on in a way about not going to uni is maybe the experience, but I think you get so many different experiences from an apprenticeship that you wouldn't get at uni. So it just depends whether you think which environment would like suit you best. But I really enjoy an apprenticeship, so that's me.
Thank you. Emma, is your journey quite similar, or?
Yeah, so I've always been more of a practical learner, and prefer to learn on the job, and that's how I've sort of found with apprenticeships, is it really does allow you to have that experience and learning at the same time, so you're able to sort of like correlate what you're learning and then real life experiences of it. I'm doing my level 3 business administration diploma, so it's very organization experience and business experience, so seeing that in real life in your day-to-day role, being able to then use it in your portfolios, it's very helpful, and it's made me have a clear understanding of it and really understand the work that I'm producing, and the qualification that I'm getting out of it. So yeah.
Amazing. Anyone else got anything to add with regards to apprenticeship over university?
I mean, I originally applied to university, but I did I've always been a very hands-on learner. I've always sort of struggled like sitting there and listening to someone. I have to actually be doing it. That being said, like I think if university is like, if you do like excel in that sort of environment, then there's no reason not to do it. I just personally didn't, and I think that was the right choice for me. I have lots of friends that go to university and they love it, and it was definitely the right route for them, and they've done like placements, so they've still got that experience under their belt. I just personally didn't think it was for me. And yeah, I'm quite happy with my choice, but yeah, would never discredit going to university. I think going to university is a great thing as well. I mean, I do a degree apprenticeship, so I'm technically going to university, but I don't like fully go to university, so it's a bit of an awkward one. So I'm still going to be getting my degree at the end. I just won't be doing the typical uni experience, but yeah, I think that's another thing to consider. Like if you're interested in still getting a degree, but you want to do an apprenticeship, there are degree apprenticeships out there. I didn't go into my role thinking I'd end up doing the degree, but I'm happy I did. But there are roles where you can just apply and they'll be doing a degree apprenticeship, and then you get a bit of both.
Thank you. The next question that I've got is about is it remote working? Do you guys go into an office? Is it sort of based on the different industry that you're in within WBD? How does the workload, what does it look like? Where are you working?
Yes, so as I said in the presentation, we usually do sort of 3 days a week in the office. So some people are based in Chiswick, some people are based in Old Street, and then some people are based in Leavesden. But yeah, my team and I personally, we usually go in sort of 2 to 3 days a week, and then work from home the rest of the time. And it's really good for sort of work-life balance. And yeah, it's not too intense, but you still get to come in and see everyone, which is really nice. So yeah, I personally love doing the sort of hybrid working model. It's great.
Thank you. And the next question is actually about the support that apprentices receive throughout their apprenticeship. What does that look like? What do you have, a sort of line manager? Are you given projects from day one? Do you sit on meetings and learn for a couple of months? What would those initial settling in period, maybe from 1 to 3 months to 6 months, sort of look like?
Yes, so I can take this one. But yeah, so when you start, you get a line manager, you get I was given a mentor as well, which was really great to have. And then on top of that, we've also got your team as well, who are also a great help. And they sort of teach you everything that you need to know, and always there to sort of answer any sort of questions you have. But then also additionally to this, when you're doing your apprenticeship, you get like a mentor, like a skills coach, or that sort of just guides you in your apprenticeship and help you to balance doing both the apprenticeship and the job at the same time, because definitely in the first like couple of months it's quite hard to sort of manage. But yeah, so you get loads of support. I mean, it is, if you're getting an apprentice in your team, it is sort of known that they're going to come in and they'll probably not have like any idea how to do sort of anything in the role. So a lot of support was given when I started. I'm sure it's been the same for Eva, Shalene, and Emma. But yeah, the teams are aware of this, that you're very, very junior and you need some support.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of students feel like they need to come into the office knowing everything and being the expert. It's all about the learning. You do not need to be the expert in your subject area as long as you've got that enthusiasm, that willingness to learn. Going into the office, it's a lot less scary than you think it is. Everyone can be very welcoming and friendly. So we've only got about 5 more minutes. So it's always good to end on a question just like this, which is, you've touched on it all, but maybe we can have one little last sentence from everyone. And that is, what advice would you give to someone who's really hoping to build a long-term career at an organisation like yours? What advice would you give your younger self as well, perhaps? Lottie, should we kick it off with you?
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard, but I'd say just sort of take things day by day. I mean, not every day is going to be smooth sailing. There's been days where I've loved coming into work and loved doing my job and really enjoyed it. And then there's been days where I've made mistakes and I've been like, oh no, I've made a mistake and this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And then it's never as bad as you think. So I think just sort of, yeah, taking things as they come, getting involved with as much as you can, meeting as many people as you can, networking, and just, yeah, getting involved as much as you can, just to sort of build that network of people around you, especially in a company like Warner Brothers Discovery. Like, everyone's so chatty, and yeah, just making sure you've got those connections and stuff if you want to sort of progress your career.
Thank you, Eva. What advice would you give to the students on the call, or perhaps your younger self, about starting at Warner Brothers Discovery?
Similarly to Lottie, I would just say, like, chat to everyone. I think that's a really, I mean, it sounds basic, but yeah, it just helps to kind of go around introducing yourself to people. Yeah, just being up for trying everything as well. And also, yeah, like, not being afraid to ask questions, like I mentioned earlier. Because yeah, you are just learning, and yeah, just take it all in. Yeah, take everything on board. I think that is really handy for, like, when you're first starting.
Thank you, Emma.
Yeah, I would just say to go into a role that you're very passionate about and that you're determined to learn in. I think I previously applied for an apprenticeship the year before I got this one, and I wasn't successful. I got through to the last round, but a year later I applied again, and thankfully they took me on, and you know, I've been knuckled down ever since and trying to make the most out of the experience as you can, because you know, you don't know if you're going to be offered something at the end, but to gain all the experience you can and to gain as much knowledge as you can whilst you have the opportunity, it's really going to take you further in your career and gain you with a lot of experience that you can take on elsewhere or throughout the company if you manage to stay on. So yeah.
Thank you, and no pressure, Shalene. This is your closing remarks now.
Yeah, not to mimic everyone else's answers, but just being where your feet are and being the best you can in the moment, because I know it's very hard not to worry about the future, but the future will eventually come and everything will happen in its own way, and just focusing on being the best version of yourself, saying yes to opportunities that come up, because if you never know, you'll never if you never try, you'll never know. And also networking, like everyone said, having a huge network for me has been a huge opportunity to get into the roles that I have gotten into. But yeah, wishing everyone all the best.
Thank you. So a huge thank you to the team. This was really insightful, and to all the students that have joined today, we hope that you found it useful. As a little reminder, this will be recorded and sent to your email tomorrow morning, so keep an eye out on your email so you can rewatch this as many times as you like and get all of the valuable bits of information. All of the questions that we may not have got down to, I will collate all of them and share them with the team team, and then we'll probably have a little article posted about this webinar on our website with any unanswered questions. So we'll be sure to send that to you as well once that is released. Thank you once again. We hope you have a lovely rest of your week. And if any of you guys are in the middle of mocks or in the lead up to exams, we wish you the best in those as well. Thank you.